Thank you so much for tuning into my show, William Wallace for America. As you know, I'm searching the country for things that I guess, as you could say, relate to, but are important to our freedom, our liberty, our prosperity, and the future of our country. And I'm always trying to find good guests for that. And with me today is one of those great guests that you're going to hear all the hot topics on, and you're going to see some really good things about, and that I think you're going to find not only interesting, but and enlightening, but also a little bit scary from time to time. But I also ask you to please visit my site, williamwallace.net. You'll see not only my sponsors, but you'll see a link for my freedom merchandise. Please click it. Visit my pillow. Use that promo code WWFA. Christian Biggs, thank you so much. Briggs, thank you so much for being on my show today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I really
You know,
was looking
the
forward to
inclination is
this.
to call you Biggs because you got some big information, but your last name is Briggs, which they can find out more about you there on the website we got at the bottom scrolling.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show. I mean, the topics you pick are some of the most important topics, including the central bank digital currency and all the debt. That is the greatest national security risk we have, which is CBDC. Of course, there's Bricks, which we can talk about, but more importantly, how deep do you want to get this? I mean, I'm sure you got some really intelligent people who watch your show. We can dive into this thing in such a way that people understand that the Democratic Party now is moving in such a quick pace to be able to control you through just three things. It only takes three things to control the people: transportation, healthcare, and money. Think about that. You got no money, you can still probably get some kind of healthcare. But if they control the healthcare and socialize it, they'll limit that. They'll basically take the healthcare and they'll ration it, just like they do in Europe, Canada, and other parts of the world like Australia. And the goal right now with the central bank digital currency is to do exactly that. And that is to limit the ability of an individual to gain so much wealth that they can become empowered and have freedom. Two, to ensure that everybody is treated fairly, to where if one person makes more than another, that extra money is then subsequently taken from the other and given to God knows who. It never ends up in the middle class or the lower middle class. It
Right,
always ends up in the
exactly.
government's hands. That's how it is.
Well, what interests me is you've piqued my curiosity in a lot of things. We're talking about the ways to control people, and one of them is transportation. And you've talked about controlling the transportation, and that's what they're
Mhm.
trying to do with this Green New Deal scam. And I myself witnessed. I hear about it. I'm aware of it, which I always recommend to people to watch the movie Planet of the Humans by Michael Moore. And my Republican conservative friends say, "Well, that's one of those, not Michael Moore movie." I'm like, "Well, yeah, but if you watch it, you'll see why his own people did not, perpetuate the movie, because the facts in the movie from Michael Moore actually back up a lot of things that conservatives have been saying about how much of a scam this new Green New Deal is." And I went to the Republican National Convention last week. I was an alternate delegate up there, and I decided to drive. I love to drive through America, and I saw these windmill farms. 40% of the windmills aren't even working. They're
Mhm.
just sitting there. But again, that's controlling transportation. They make it all green energy, which is not as reliable as oil and gas and coal. And then they can shut down the grid. They can shut down transportation using the Green New Deal scam. Is that something that you're connecting to also?
Yeah, the Green New Deal was basically engineered in 1969 as a means to try to limit the ability for people to have some kind of a freedom to, right, to go outside a country, or to be able to have some type of understanding that if we can scare people into using carbon, fossil fuels, which is oil, gas, coal, and so forth, we scare them enough that all of those elements are creating this unbelievable hostile environment, and that hostile environment is going to be some catastrophic event in the near future. We can limit them to where they go. We keep them at home. They won't spend their money somewhere else. They won't have freedom. Without freedom, then they don't have thought process. They don't think for themselves. We basically have enough authority over them, kind of like what happened with Stay Home, in in-place shelter. And that's kind of what it was. In 2020, we realized that that is the goal of the climate change. The goal of the climate change is to limitations of transportation. In other words, to be able to go anywhere, do anything, have the freedom to be able to move from here to there. They want you in California, you're going to stay in California. So climate change is a hoax. We know now that there was more carbon, far greater amount of carbon years ago than there is today. We know for a fact that volcanoes put more carbon into the atmosphere than anything we're going to do for the next 100 or even 1,000 years. You cannot have a world exist without the CO2 measures that we currently need. In fact, we're depleting them now. That's actually going to affect a vegetation and plant life as we move forward to the next generation of this climate change hoax.
What's interesting to me is that they talk about the carbon, how they're going to now pump carbon dioxide into the earth, and they're doing that as a way to protect humans or the environment. Yet the I guess the generators that they're being used to pump the carbon dioxide into the ground in some places are producing more carbon dioxide than they're eliminating from the atmosphere, and they're pumping it under the earth. But that's a whole another thought process. Well, the other idea or the thought that you gave me was, when you talk about controlling transportation, and we talk about CBDC, and we talk about some things that are scary, but there's a lot of people who don't believe that this is happening. They say, we've got freedom right now. We're okay right now. Everything's fine. Go back to sleep. It's all going to be okay. Would you agree with this thought that the people that are doing this to us now, they're not necessarily doing it for control now. They're doing it because they realize that people are awake right now, and they realize there's some people that they're able to uh, pull the wool over their eyes right now because they're asleep at the wheel. Would you say that they're doing this for future generations, that their game is a long game, and they're not worried about whether people believe it now or not? They're laying the groundwork for future generations. Would you agree with that, or do you think there's a now game?
It's a really, really good question. So let's talk about that. So there are believers, look, there's believers that right now say that if I jump off this cliff, I've got a high probability of bouncing without a parachute. I think I can land on my feet and I can jump, tuck, and roll. There are people out there that would believe that, okay? However, that's very limited. Now, let's go to climate change. Believe it or not, there's probably 50% of the entire Democratic Party, or people that believe in the far left agenda policies, believe that climate change is the imminent greatest catastrophic event that's happening, that's going to happen, that will happen. These people are hardcore dyers. Oh, we've got to watch out for anything that pollutes the atmosphere. They're so concerned. I don't know if you saw in the last couple of days, but some of the political groups, or let's call it the environmental groups that side with the political parties on the left, have said that we need to eliminate all dogs and cats and birds immediately, because we're under a climate change crisis. And you start to think to yourself, I mean, you can't even scratch your head, because that's not even going to do enough to try to even come close to the understanding of how the stupidity of people who say that actually work. You can't. So to go to your question and expand on this answer even more, yes, there are 50, maybe 70% on the high side of people who actually vote that direction, believe in exactly what we're talking about, that gas, oil, coal, imminent threat. We're all going to die probably by Saturday or Sunday at noon. Then the other 30 to 40, 50% believe it's bullshit. It doesn't really have any kind of truth to it. And let me tell you something. We need to do that so we can contain people in these 15-minute cities. If we can get them to believe that climate change exists, then we can control people based on every single thing of their life. If they can't travel, they'll spend their money where we tell them to spend it. They don't spend it, and they keep the economy going, we'll eliminate their money in their wallet, digital wallet, every month. Electric vehicles. You'll love this stat. Do you know it takes 1 barrel of oil to make a Ford F-150 truck? That's how much oil is used in the manufacturing and assembling and delivery of a Ford F-150 truck. It takes 100 barrels of oil to manufacture a Tesla. Now, I did not go to MIT, but I'm pretty good at math. 1 or 100? Which of the two is more costly to the environment? And take your time on that because that's a big question with a
Yeah,
big
it is.
answer.
I got to
I'll
think. Let's
wait.
see. 100 minus 1 is
Right.
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 So what's interesting is, and you also hear the statistics of how much fuel it still costs to produce the electricity that powers a Tesla. Do you know?
Absolutely. Okay. And it gets better. Let's really get down to it. If I bought a Tesla today, I come back to you and I say, man, look at my Tesla. This car is fast. I've got no costs. Well, you do have a cost. The car is twice the price of a comparable gas engine, sometimes 3 times the price of a comparable gas engine. But let's put that aside for a second. Its cost is no measure. We're got super amount of money. We bought this because we love the environment. Okay, nice. It's a great thought. But let's go down to deeper dive. It costs $17 a gallon in equivalent value for the least expensive electric vehicle. Because you know why? Because in 8 to 10 years, those batteries are worthless. Those batteries now can cost 1/3 to half, in most cases, of what the original cost of the car was, which means your life expectancy is 8 to 10 years on an electric vehicle. The life expectancy on a gas or diesel powered can be 50 years, theoretically, 75 years. I mean, theoretically, but about 25 to 30 years, and it's still more affordable and efficient. That's the key. You've got $3, $2, $1 per mile. You got $3 to $4 per gallon on a gas diesel powered engine. You got $17 per gallon and could be upwards of $40 or $50 a mile. I mean, it's staggering how inefficient the development to get the commodities and elements to make the batteries, to make the electric vehicle, then how poorly it is when it comes to efficiency and downright cost analysis per mile. It doesn't work. It never will work. It wasn't going to work from day one, but it's a great idea to enrich a handful of people through subsidies, and that's what it's all about.
And controlling. We're gonna switch topics here for just the first, because and we're
Okay.
gonna bounce back around with CBDC, also because I think that CBDC is one of the most dangerous things to America. If they turn in, if they, everybody, and it's easy right now for people to think it's okay because they're using their credit cards or using their debit cards. They're already tired of cash, and they go, cash is a thing of the past. It's easy to use the debit cards and the credit cards. And I'll agree, it is a little bit easier, but I personally like to use cash as often as I can because one, I don't want to pay a transaction fee. Two, I like my freedom and the future of my freedom. And I think that once we switch if we switch to CBDC or we continue to use credit cards and debit cards all the time, it's a way for them to control us because for many reasons, and I'm gonna let you talk here in just a second on this, but I want to kind of set the table up. When I go in someplace like and use that credit card or debit card, I'm not only paying a transaction fee, they are tracking what I'm spending and where I'm spending. And this goes to election integrity too, by the way. They always want to say, oh, well, the digital stuff is safer. And I'm like, well, they can hack into your credit cards, they can hack into your debit cards, they can hack into your bank account. Scammers are now hacking into businesses and doing ransomware. They're hacking into banks, and all of these big companies have super duper triple protection of all their firewalls set up, but somehow or another they're still hacking into it. If we go CBDC, not only will the bad guys have more access to our finances, so will government, and they can shut it on and off whenever they want. People don't think it's possible. Oh, we can trust the government, right? We can trust the scammers. They're going to get, they want to go to the big companies. They don't want to come to us, right? Are those the only things we have to worry about? What are your thoughts on that, Christian?
So there's a program called Bridge. If anybody wants to look it up, Bridge is a universal platform that's already been designed, up and running, for the exclusive transacting of central bank digital currencies by the Briggs nations. The Briggs nations obviously are a coalition of countries that have decided to get together, create a unified front, to use their GDP, their financial powers in a cohesive front, like in such a way that it almost becomes one unified government. They built a system to bypass SWIFT. SWIFT is obviously the main way in which we transact around the world in dollars. They used something that was an anti-dollar platform. There are local currencies that are now being used for local transactions in oil and gas and commodities. Everything that used to be in dollars is now done in local currencies or by the Chinese yuan, the digital yuan, which is their CBDC. CBDC is nothing more than a couple things. It's control, it's surveillance, and ultimately it's containment. And as you said earlier, what they want to do is to make sure that all monies flow in a digital algorithm where it's uniquely identifiable by a unique serial number on that algorithm. In other words, it's a token. And the algorithm is basically designed to create a way in which you go from A to B. It's a transactional command. And the way they built Enbridge is now to bypass US dollars for as many transactions around the world to hurt the value of the dollar by decreasing the demand. And that's the reason why interest rates are staying elevated. Even though we know there might be a rate cut in September, that's not going to do a whole lot for anything. It's more politics than anything. But what's real scary is how central bank digital currencies are now being built and or deployed, meaning in some type of use, limited or aggressively open. 98% of the world's countries are now in full research development or have fully deployed this type of new method of payment, which eliminates cash, eliminates any type of privacy, and it also determines your worth. So if you're on Facebook and other things and you post a lot of personal things, not that Facebook is bad, you can use it for business and you can use Instagram for a whole plethora of things like Twitter. You can use these social media platforms for a host of great business opportunities, especially marketing, distribution, and awareness. But when you start to put very detailed, sensitive personal information on there, like what's your kids, your birthdays, where you're at, anniversaries, where do they go to school, that's a little more sensitive. They're building up a social credit score to determine who you are, what you are, and how you vote to be used against you. And if it's used against you, they'll do it through a financial means by limiting the money you have in your digital wallet. They can just turn it on, turn it off, add to it, take from it. And that's the goal. And by the way, this Enbridge, which is a counterbalance to the SWIFT, which is what the United States uses and its allies or its G7, they built it to hurt the dollar, destroy the economy. It's working incredibly well. Obviously, it's not as big in the short period of time it's been around as the SWIFT, but make no mistake about it. There's already 21 countries using it and it's expanding to 80 countries by the middle of next year.
And the reality of it is too, people don't want to think that the government would ever do anything to control us with it. Like you said, they can turn it when they have control over that digitally. When you have cash or even a checking account with a checkbook, you can still control the flow of your money. Think to a time when they, as every street camera that issues tickets now is connected to the government CBDC, and all they got to do is zap the money out of your account. They're not going to care whether you got a house note, a car note, an insurance payment, or whatever, and they start zapping your money out, or you have a fine or a penalty due, and it just comes out automatically because they have that control. People right now cannot imagine that because we haven't lived that way, and we don't live in China like they're doing some of this stuff in China right now. Am I wrong? They're doing some of this stuff in China now.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, look, let's say it for what it is. Okay, let's really go deep on this. Central bank digital currency is not for efficiency. Let's put that aside. It's not for freedom. That's a given. It's not for the ability to do private transactions. Put that aside. It has one focal point: is value in society to determine your worth. They align it with your social credit score based on what they know of you through social media posts and or algorithms on what you do, how you do it, where you do it, what you read, what you post, what you like, what you share. They are building a social credit score that will define who you are. Then they incorporate that into the digital currency and they say, oh, hey, John Smith, you're eating too much meat this month. Oh, look how much you traveled in that diesel truck. No, we don't want that. No, I can't have that. Now we're going to fine you for the beef, the chicken, the pork. We're going to fine you because while you were sleeping, If somebody borrowed your truck, you got to pay for it, or you went too far. These are the things of which they're going to determine, like that carbon tax, a tax based on your carbon footprint. I just read in Europe yesterday that the carbon footprint tax is so bad that people now have determined I either have to pay the tax by driving my car, it's going to cause this tax to be in effect to work, or I'm just not going to drive the car and not go to work, and then I'll just get some type of an entitlement from France and Italy. They have these programs and say, oh, it's all good. I'll stay home. It may be less money in my pocket, but at least I don't have to worry about the money being taken from me because I drove to work in a gas-powered engine.
And this is currently happening in Europe, you say?
Oh yeah, yeah, they're hot on this thing. This whole carbon footprints thing, this is no joke. You go look this stuff up in Europe. There's a lot of countries that are now mandating that this be put into a countrywide or a continent-wide mandate. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's like you almost have to look to the sky and go, I don't know where to look or what to do and what to say. I'm looking to the sky for answers because there's nothing here on earth that makes sense of these policies unless it makes all the sense in the world. You're trying to control the people, and the Great Reset is not wealth inequality, as you and I might know, where we help others to get success, or we give loans, or we lower taxes, or we lower regulations. No, no, no. The Great Reset is the wealth inequality to strip the wealth from the haves, not give to the have-nots, but to keep for themselves. Then all y'all people, the common folks, you're equal. You have nothing, they've got nothing. Remember what their slogan is? You will have nothing and be happier. No
And
responsibilities.
but I'm gonna push you a little bit because this is all seems to be driven by the Bill Gates of the world, the very wealthy people of the world. But what you're
Mhm.
telling me right now is that they are going to be affected also by this when their wealth gets distributed by the people in power. But they supposedly, as some people will say, are in bed with the people with power right now. So why would they be pushing the Great Reset when they're going to be affected by it?
Oh, well, let's talk about that. So in 1948, in February of 48, the Soviet Union invaded Czechoslovakia and made it a full-blown communist country. Not everybody lost their wealth, just like in Venezuela, just like in North Korea, just like in Cuba. Not everybody loses their wealth. There'll always be allies, friends, colleagues, cohorts, I would call it partners in crime. There's always going to be the people that helped the evil to become the law of the land or the rulers of the country. When you look at the top corporations, and I mean tech companies and or corporations that are, let's call it genuine monopolies in some category or some facet of business, would you agree Amazon is the largest online retailer and certainly cloud company in the world?
Yes.
Okay. Well, they're 90% of the online retail. Why aren't they broken up?
This is true. Back in what the 70s and 80s, when they were breaking up all those conglomerates, they would have gotten broken up into regional businesses.
Well, Jeff Bezos gives $200 million each and every year to the DNC and or contributions to Democratic politicians. Do Google, 97% of the search engine in the world. You don't see them broken up, do you?
No,
How about Facebook,
nope, not at all.
Microsoft?
Not at all.
I can keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone I'm talking about is a Democratic contributor to the highest level.
But real quick to wrap up on
Yeah.
CBDC, which is something that people think of CBDC as, oh, well, that's that government exchange. Digital currency is okay as long as we don't get CBDC. And I always like to remind people that they're one and the same.
Mhm.
It's gonna be like the chicken or the egg. One of them is going to come first, but you can't have one without the other. And they might call it digital to camouflage it and make it look and sound pretty, but it's really going to be come down to CBDC at the end of the day, and and the government will step in and say, well, we can have digital, but we have to regulate it in some way so that it's fair and equitable, we'll say, or however they do that. but a lot of people now are okay with it. But and of course also with the narratives, but future the generations that the younger generations now, they're being conditioned with the narratives of equality and transgender and CBDC and digital. All of that is okay, and all of course, gas is bad, coal power is bad, green energy is good. But I can remember, I mean, I'm not that old, but I can remember a generation back when everybody, you would think that would be crazy, and they held their cash. And now, through the narratives of the last 20, 30 years, we've all been softened up to be more accepting. I say we, not including me, but as a population, to be more accepting of, we need to have this green energy. We need to have digital. We need to be more efficient. Elections are okay. The machines are okay. Everything's fine. Go back to sleep. But again, I think they're softening up future generations, because I think they're playing a long game. And I asked you earlier, and we went off something else. Do you think that it's a long game or a short game for them?
Well, it's been a long game for years. It's a long time coming. It took years to build all this, not decades per se, but certainly in the last 8 to 10 years, it was started, and they built this system. So they had to think about it long before the system was even looked upon as starting the programming and writing the code. In saying that, now it's built. So now it's the short game. How fast can they get Kamala in that White House to be able to push through the communist utopia / new world order and the Great Reset agenda, to be able then to make sure that in 28 there is no Republican candidate? The goal of the Democratic National Party and the policies and agenda that they have go far beyond the topics we're talking about today. They have one motivation: to create one party rule, one singular government over the balance of the world, including the US. So central bank digital currencies is the fundamental basis to do that. Think about it, and I'll leave it at this. If I was to control your wealth and I had full control at my hand, and I limit your ability to use that money somewhere, or I take it away altogether, what can you do? What can you do in life? Where can you go? Nowhere. And you do nothing. Wealth is power, and that's what they know. Stripping the wealth gives them the power. If you're broke and have nothing to show for anything that you've accumulated over years or decades, whatever it may be, you are now powerless.
You
Does that
have
make sense?
it makes perfect sense. You've now brought two new questions to the show here. I'm going to ask you about Kamala in a second, but what do you think is the best, easiest way for us to protect that wealth? Or, what do you think? Do you think it's hordes of cash under our mattress? Do we save cash? I give people tips all the time on my show. I tell them, of course, use more cash, because look, traveled last week on the road, and I can't tell you how many gas stations I went to where there's signs that say our computers are down, cash only. That's happened locally here, where it says our computers are down, cash only. Everybody thinks digital currency and CBDC is going to be the answer to efficiency. But to your point, I've traveled and I've seen signs that say their computers are down, cash only. Imagine, if you will, you're traveling or you're trying to, even in your own area, and the grid gets shut down. Is this the kind of thing you're talking about? If so, what do you think is the best way we can protect ourselves from that?
Well, it's a great question. Cash is a deflating or depreciating asset. Now, it does have value, but the redeeming value of it is only the day that you have it. 5 days, 5 months, 5 years from now, it's going to have less value. I look at rare precious metals. In other words, silver, gold, even platinum. These are absolute money. These are absolutely uncontested money and absolutely used as money. These are the things in which, I'll give you an example. I had an Uber drive the other day, a multi-hour Uber drive, because of the consequences of that CloudStrike issue with Delta Airlines. So I had to take an Uber from Atlanta back to Nashville, about 5 hour Uber ride. When I got to my house, he asked me what I was doing. I said, well, I'm a precious metals dealer. And he goes, really? I said, well, yeah. He goes, do you have any precious metal? I said, well, I have a little bit here at the house. It's not much. And he goes, well, instead of paying me cash, will you pay me in silver? True story, last Friday. And I gave him about $600 worth of silver. And he literally looked at me and thanked me. A little over $600, $625 to be exact. He thanked me. And what he said was, he goes, I'll take silver over cash any day, because at least I know if I hold on to the silver, it'll be worth more in a year or two. The cash will be worth a lot less, and theoretically it's buying power. I said, you're an educated guy. You're on top of it. So if you're going to have things that you need that are essential for the viability of your family to stay strong, because without money, you're going to be weakened at the knees, and without any resources available, you're weakened, period. You're done. You're dead in the water. At least with gold and silver, which is the most recognized form of cash in the world, it's universal. Some people don't even know what a euro looks like, or a dollar looks like, or a peso looks like. Those are not universal. Those are limited, and they're basically centralized to where their own ability is to transact in those. You get a gold bar or a silver bar, I promise you, there's nobody on the planet that can't get a price of that item through your phone or making a phone call within 5 minutes. You'll know 24/7 what the value of that is, and that's cash. That's what you want to bury somewhere, not literally bury in your backyard, but put somewhere in your home or at your fingertips, in order to be able to know two things. One, when things get bad, the sky falls in, my family and I will be able to eat, we'll be able to pay bills, or to be able to travel, because why? You have the means, you have the money to do it. And that's not so far-fetched anymore, because why? The difference between crypto, digital currency, and central bank digital currency is CBDC, central bank, is centralized. They control it. Crypto is decentralized, that can flow. The government's never going to allow, in the same way we would transact decentralized systems, because they've got to regulate taxation and surveillance for obviously bad people. But at the end of the day, if both of those become the law of the land and they don't like you, they'll just turn you off, like an electric vehicle. Turn you off, you're stuck. What are you going to do then? If you have gold and silver, you'll be able to pay your way as you need to go.
I agree with you 100%. You mentioned Kamala a minute ago. So
Mhm.
now the news story, the narratives, I mean, of course, Joe was the darling. He's going to be in the Olympics this year, which is why he can't run for president, because he's going to be in the 100 meters and he's going to be in the decathlon. And Joe is the guy, he's the epitome of health. And all of a sudden, one day, that door, that the curtain closes on him, and out walks from behind the curtain Kamala, and they say, "Hey, don't look behind the curtain. Joe's back there. He's doing just great. We have a new product. This is the shiny new product. Her name is Kamala. She's gonna be the savior of the of the United States, right? And you've got some information on her you want to share through your research. Please, Christian, what's the information that you've got on Kamala?"
Well, let's go back a number of years. Let's look at the talking points that she made so clear when she was running for attorney general, running for senator, running for president, became vice president. Look at the talking points. Number one, she wants Medicare for all citizens. That is socialized medicine. It's the worst form of healthcare. Full coverage, very, very low standards of care. Not quality of care, that's out the window. It's just care. You're sick, it takes 6 months to see a doctor. Oh, you have a heart condition? You may never see the doctor if you're over 72. Even 65 has become the new norm for unproductive or people that don't add value to society, like they do in some countries with socialized medicine. You'll wait years. They're just basically, it's the waiting game. That's what she wants, is socialized medicine. She wants universal basic income for everybody that doesn't have the ability to work. Well, depending on how much it is, that sounds pretty appealing. I can't work. I'm depressed. Well, then here's your $5,000 a month. That appeals to people. Why? I'll tell you why. 62% of America right now, today, do not pay taxes. They live on either mom and dad, local, state, or federal
Mhm.
entitlements, 18 and above. That is the highest in history. No society in thousands of years, and it's shown to be exactly what I'm telling everyone, ineffective to maintain the consistency and the viability of a society when over 50% of the people don't pay taxes. You cannot have a system that so far taxes so high, so great, the top 5 or 10% to make up for the balance. They will go broke. They'll all go broke. It doesn't work and never will. And the government knows this, but they systematically still do it. Kamala Harris is for removing the filibuster. She wants to stack the Supreme Court so they can pass legislation that is communistic in nature, so they can continue to shape the fabric of America from capitalism, which is low taxes, low government regulation, create jobs, create success, create long-term growth value, to marginal success, limited wealth creation, and zero wealth capabilities to keep that money forever. She wants to stack the court to change laws that would give them the opportunity to mandate or to put into place the things of which that would be those outcomes. No wealth for anybody except for higher government. She also wants to do health care for illegals. Man, we can't even afford health care for the citizens. Now you're talking about
the Medicare system, Medicaid system is broke
yeah,
right now.
yeah, broke.
What
Let
about
me
Social
tell you
Security?
something. Oh, broke. It's broke. Social Security is the biggest debacle outside Biden trying to put together sentences. Like you're like, what did he say? I don't even
Right.
know what he said. What are you talking about? Social Security being good for people, that it's going to be self-evident, that it's going to be self-driven, self-paid for? What are you talking about? It was a debacle back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they knew by the 70s that this thing is a piece of shit. There's no way you're going to be able to get this thing to fund itself. You cannot tax the people at such the rates because you have too many people that are already taxing that, which we know
And
is a lifeline for others.
Kamala believes in a high tax rate, doesn't she?
Oh. Now, let's talk about that for a second. 70 to 80% tax rate is what she's going to push aggressively. Well, why not just go to 100? I mean, who the hell's going to work
Right.
18 hours a day or 70, 80 hours a week to sit there and make 20% on every dollar that you make and you keep it? What the hell are you talking about? No one's going to do that. That's stupidity. They're just going to say, that universal basic income sounds pretty good right now. That's hyperinflation creation. That's destroying the soul of any individual who has any kind of self-worth, and it doesn't allow you to have any self-worth down the road when you get to be that dependent on something for so long. It's like a drug. It just strips you of your motivation. The third thing she wants, besides removing the filibuster, of course, is stacking the Supreme Court to change federal election laws. I think the biggest, I mean, they're all bad, don't get me wrong, but one of the biggest kicks in the pants right now is really healthcare for illegals. Man, we got more people that aren't on healthcare than when Obama took office, but yet he said, oh, it's going to be, nobody will not have healthcare. What are you talking about? 30 million people didn't have healthcare in 08. Now it's 40 million people don't have healthcare. Here we are, fast forward, years and years later. You'd think they would clean it up, get it right, get it to a point where it's efficient, it's producing some kind of net good results. It's worse today than it was last year. Last year it was worse than the year before. This thing was never designed to be self-sufficient. It was designed to collapse the healthcare system within 10 years financially, and with burdensome rules and regulations for doctors, to collapse in 10 years from the time they got it off the ground into what they're doing today, which is Medicare for all, which is like one step below medicine at the vet.
Socialized medicine.
Oh,
You know what? You bring up two things that are allude to two things I've done a show on. One, of course, is the term quietly quitting. This younger generation that we have coming in that are adhering to the narratives of global warming and, of course, the Green New Deal scams and, to social equality, equity, and all of that other stuff. They're adhering to the narratives and they're feeling the effects of, how hard the threshold to get to be able to sustain yourself and crawl, and the threshold you have to cross to be successful is getting wider and higher now because of what they're doing to not only our economy, but what they're doing to our structure, the structure of our communities and our country and our freedoms. So what's happening is it's easier for younger generations to be able to quietly quit the workforce and go on government assistance, or like you said, live with their parents, they pay less taxes, they survive, and it's easier for that than it is to do the extra work to become successful which the effect of that is they are destroying our work ethic in America. And I think that work ethic is one of the most vital things to not only a family and a community, but our country. And when you destroy the work ethic in America, you destroy the desire to do better. You destroy families. You destroy a country because nobody wants to work. Everybody's dependent on the government, and then the government has full control. Is that something you would agree with, or have a
100%.
comment on, rather?
Well, the government's out for one thing, to control the entire movement, almost make it a policy of understanding that anything you do comes under government control or influence. I mean, the influence, you may still have some decisions whether you're going to go left or right, but at the end of the day, any one of those two decisions has to have full control and surveillance to determine your next move. So they may give you some freedom of thought in order to be able to make a decision that they technically are crafting for you, but and give you the thinking that you still have some limitations. But at the end of the day, it's full control. It's just like in North Korea. In North Korea, you can't do anything. You can't do anything. You're working at your job during the day. You cannot get up and go to the restroom if you need to go without permission. You cannot watch TV past 6 p.m. You cannot own a car unless you have high level position within government, or you have something that gives them some feeling that you're really into the party, you're devoted,
Right.
you're eating up the dog food, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, it's all good. And let me tell you something. Venezuela, if you're a member of the party, you're doing good. It's not bad. Look, communism is great as long as you're the guy on the communist side. Okay, if you're
Right.
not and you're the regular worker, it ain't so good. It
Right.
actually can become quite challenging to eat every day, unless you got lots of dogs and cats and they can cook those up pretty good. So
If they get rid of the dogs and cats in here in America, like you were talking about earlier, we're not going to have anything to eat.
Listen, I've been to China dozens of times. There's no birds in China. When you go to the meat markets, it's dog, cat, rat. They're hanging on the racks, man. Make no mistake. They're hanging. I've seen it. It's gross. I will tell you that they look at it as a delicacy because they've got no choice. The government limits the success of certain people there. And when they do find success, they take it away. And they go, no, 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 too much power. Why? Well, because you got too much wealth. Ooh, we don't want that. So China is going even more communist in a lot of the ways in which they allow any type of business to move forward. There is restrictions and limitations on that success. It's measured. And in Europe, look at Spain and look at some of the other countries. They're hardcore socialists. They're hardcore, almost what we call communism light, to where limitations on growth. What you've got to do in two things. You've got to marginalize how much money you have in places that they can grab it, they can get it. Then again, you got to always have that safe haven cash. And I always say hard assets because it can go anywhere, especially gold. You can put $1 million in your pockets and get the hell out of Dodge if you have to, and it
What
has
about
wealth
copper?
all over the world.
What
You
about
know,
copper?
copper is great, but it's going to take a lot to create value. I mean, look, I'll give you the example. We got an order a couple weeks ago from a customer of ours for $21 million in silver. It's very normal to get these orders now, at least twice, three times a month. That's 20 metric tons. Now, we're shipping that to a secure location here in the U.S. on his property, but that's a lot to move. Copper is even more expensive by the ton. Look, at the end, when I look at this in the end days, or days which we're coming closer to less capitalism, more communist type environment, I say, look, at one point, mark my words, wealth creation will not be the name of the game. Wealth preservation. If the Democrats succeed in keeping that White House, look at the damage they've done already. If they are getting control of the next 4 years, you will not be worried about wealth creation. It won't happen. It's going to be about wealth preservation. Because when you increase rates of 80% taxation on income, 50% on capital gains, you create such rules and regulations that 50% of the small businesses go out of business. No one's going to care about making money. Fear is greater than greed. You will be so scared about what you have being taken from you, you will find places to put it to create wealth preservation. Mark my words, we are now in that environment. I've got billionaire clients that call me every day. I'm almost one of those well-known dealers in the world. We have a huge company with lots and lots of people that help logistically both buy, sell, and store, and we can even insure your stuff, precious metals and select rare gold coins. And let me tell you something. One of the wealthiest families in the world here in the US just called me last night. They're looking to do about $1 billion to $5 billion in silver to preserve wealth. Now, if they're nervous, you should be nervous. But remember, gold can be put in your pocket. You got to go, you got to go. You need cash, you can sell it anywhere in the world. So my point is, copper is great if we're not in the state of mind that we're in. And the state of mind is we are entering something that's never been seen in world history like this, certainly not in our country, which is the uniformed understanding by multiple countries to create this new world order, one world government, and one world currency. When that happens, and believe me, Briggs is already built for that purpose. It's transacting about $70 billion a day right now, which was zero 2 months ago. So it's working. It's a central bank digital currency, exclusive monetary platform, and it's working. And that should scare everybody into at least preserving portions of capital that you can afford to preserve.
I've got a few more questions, and we got about
Sure.
4 more minutes left. I want to
Okay.
wrap up. I have a couple questions for you later after we get off air.
Sure.
But for right now, like we're looking at, we're in an echo chamber. I mean, right now, most people that are watching us, listening to us on my show, are going to be like-minded individuals. There's a lot of people who disagree with us. They said, "Oh, that sounds way too conspiratorial. That sounds way too far out there. That's never going to happen." Which I think what's happening now, it's almost like they're softening the target for later. But that's my opinion. And also, I agree with you. How fast they're trying to move this as quickly as possible. However, what do you think that, going political here, that Trump could do to expand the base to be able to win an election, or to be able to have such a monumental win, he overcomes the Democrats cheating in this next election, to be able to where we have a chance in America of stopping all of this that you're talking about right now?
Two things. Appeal to the women voters, since they do outnumber male voters. Men are a little bit less on the registration numbers. Women are more. Women are more profound to be able to influence a vote. So I would appeal to the women and really take your case to them. You believe in a lot of the different things that the majority believe in. You're here to help support their rights. You're here to help support they're getting back on their feet. If they find themselves in a position, just like sometimes men, but women obviously are the majority of the single parents out there, to help them get back on their feet, not as a career path, but definitely help with the social safety nets that we have. But again, it's not a career path. And then two, to understand that capitalism is the only way to the majority of people to find financial success, and to realize that we do need some type of healthcare system that does work for everybody, and not this deboggle that Obama tried to push down and to create that would collapse into something that doesn't work. Socialized medicine doesn't work. It's just a tool for control that the government puts on people to determine the worth of individuals. If you're too old, you're non-productive, you're kicked to the curb. Go to Canada. They'll tell you now, well, we really can't get to you on that procedure, maybe you should try killing yourself. So they have programs now where you can do that in Canada. So that doesn't really bode well for a lot of people. So there are ways of which to connect with the undecided, the left side voters, but still allow them to think that they're getting the value and that someone's listening to what their needs are, without having to just shun them for just a more of a select group of demographics. Because Trump is both one of the most highly charisma persons we've ever seen. Certainly me, but his integrity, his character is without reproach. I mean, this guy doesn't have anything in himself other than one thing: what can I do for you? What can I do for this country? And how can I make it better for everybody as a whole? This guy's integrity is unbelievable. His character, impeccable. His willingness, sensitivity, and understanding, unreal. So he's got everything it takes to lead the nation. I mean, look, he was president for 4 years. We did great. No wars. The only war was people against him inside the Democratic Party
Right.
because he was exposing all of their bullshit and their evilness. And that's what it was. I mean, look, it's like he went in there and audited the books and goes, hey, all these bank executives have been robbing the bank. It's not the guy in the front door, it's the guys in the back door.
Right,
That's what
exactly.
happened.
This is amazing. Christian, you have been not only a fantastic guest and with a ton of information, and I really appreciate you, but I hope to have you back on the show again soon sometime, and where we can talk about more things that you're aware of. I'm amazed at how much you're aware of in general, but also I can sense your enthusiasm for our country. Do we make it? Does America make it? Do we find a way to fix it?
Yeah, Trump's going to come through. Don't worry about that. Listen, remember in the early 90s, kind of late 80s, he went to the banks and says, look, I owe you $1.2 billion. I got about $2 million over here in the checking account. Now, you want these buildings back and go broke, or do you want to extend my credit lines and let's keep this ball rolling? Guess what they did? They said, okay, Trump, we're going to give you another $400 million. Let's roll the dice. By 2000, he had paid all the debt back and he had put another $1 billion in positive cash on the balance sheet. This guy is a winner. Remember that. You don't buy products, you buy the management. Buy the management. He's a winner.
Christian Briggs, thank you very much. I've had your website playing down here at the bottom. I hope people go visit your website at bmcham.com, find out more about you. I also ask everybody to please visit my site, williamwallace.net, and I hope they'll visit that one or too. Christian, a couple of seconds, any final words?
Yeah, you can never have too much gold under the mattress.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you, Christian. Have a great day. Hang on one second.
Thanks for appreciate being on the show.
Got to hang on one second, Christian. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please share the show with somebody you think might be interested in saving our country.